It's been a while. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I think it's been 82 days since my last upload. Sorry. It has been a transformative summer. Last time you guys saw me, I had bright red, fire engine red hair. And now I am blonde, and I went through a brief spell of bright orange hair on my way up here. So that's new. I've got this tuft that has to grow out because it has to, and it's annoying, but that's fine. It is the 26th of August. I decided to go back to school, and today was my first day of the semester. The campus that I go to sometimes that's close to my house is kind of like a early college for high school students, so I'm almost always the oldest person besides the professor, which is fine. Another transformative thing, I got glasses. I can see now far away, which is really cool. I didn't know how bad my eyesight was until I got them. And yeah, so glasses too. New hair, new glasses, new me, new year. So I had my first class this morning, and I came home because I have like 6 hours between my first and my second class on Monday and Wednesday, and I was going to work on my online class, but for some reason the professor hasn't published it, so that's annoying. But I thought I would take that time to just sit down and film, let you guys know what's been going on. And yeah, thank you for those that have stuck around with the world's most inconsistent YouTuber. For today's video, I just wanted to do a quick wrap up of all of my summer reading. It has been 3 months, almost, since I uploaded. I know August isn't over yet, but I'm not going to finish any books in the next 5 days. 4 days? Whatever, before the month is over. So I figured I'd just talk about them. This summer, I read 12 books, which is pretty good. It's about a book a week. And I want to show you and briefly talk about the books that I read. First book that I read during June was a book that I started several years ago. And that book is The Final Summit by Andy Andrews. This was given to me by one of my former bosses 2 jobs ago. I mean, it was like 2017. It might have been 2016. I can't remember when I was given this book, but I had read through it. I got to like here from towards the end. Like, I was almost done with it, and then I just got so bored and I put it down. In June, I went through and in an Excel document, I put all of the books that I own in my library and whether or not I had read them. It was like 58% of my library was read, or 60? Something like that. I'll just sit down and finish it. It took me an hour just to finish it. I honestly hardly even remember what it's about. I think a guy kind of dies, or he has a dream, and he goes to this like heaven-ish place where a bunch of people from history are, and they're trying to figure out what is the one thing that will save humanity, or something like that. And the answer is only 2 words, I guess. It got a little tedious because they talked to like Abraham Lincoln, and then they would submit their question to the angel Gabriel, and he would be like, nope, that's not the right answer. And then a new figure from history would come to the table. And it went on like that. The same, like, they talked about what they thought the answer was and submitted the answer, and it wasn't the right answer. And they submitted the answer, and it wasn't. Like, it got really tedious. I wouldn't read it again. The next book was Breaking Dawn by Stephanie Meyer. I started the Twilight series at the end of April, and I finished the whole series in June. I love Breaking Dawn. We have 3.5 books of Bella being a human, and half of a book of her being a vampire, and I wish that we had more of her life as a vampire. I love Twilight. I love the concept of it. I enjoyed the Jacob section more in this book than I did during New Moon. It takes up a huge chunk of the book. I wish there was more, and I feel like the ending, like, it ends beautifully. There's also still a cliffhanger, and I wish we could get back into this world. And I doubt it will ever happen, because people have been ruthless to Stephenie Meyer about Twilight, and I'm sure, like, the dedicated fan base would be ecstatic if she were to announce another book. But the social media is just ruthless. It would be nice, but I doubt it will ever happen. The next book that I read was on my Kindle. It was the only book on my Kindle that I read this summer. I don't even know if I still have it on here. No. I don't even have it on my Kindle anymore. I'm pretty sure it was a free book. I don't know. Anyway, it was called Buddha's To-Do List. It was interesting. I just wanted to learn a little bit more about Buddhism. The main takeaway that I have practiced from it is being more present in the moment, turning inward and reflecting more instead of being angry or upset at the outside world. And it really helped me a lot at the beginning of the summer with work. I probably need to apply this again. It just helped me not to feel so frustrated and angry. Buddha's To-Do List. And then I finished all of the Twilight with Life and Death by Stephenie Meyer, the 10-year anniversary edition of Twilight. It's almost the exact same story as the first Twilight book, but everyone's gender is swapped except for Renee, Phil, and Billy. Bella's parents and step-parent. Instead of Bella, we have Beau. Instead of Edward, we have Edith. Instead of Bella being seen as a damsel in distress and just a stupid teenager, it was just showing that anybody in this situation would be helpless, would be in danger in a world full of vampires. And the ending is totally different from actual Twilight, but I love how Stephenie Meyer concluded the story and how unapologetic she was about it. I always enjoyed this one. I think I've read it twice, and it's always good. If you like Twilight and you're looking for a fresh take on it, I would definitely recommend Life and Death, but be prepared that it's a little weird. It's an adjustment to get used to everybody's gender being different. And then at the end of June, I restarted my favorite series of all time. And that is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I have previously mentioned that I was able to meet him several months ago at a book signing, and he signed several of my books, this being one of them, as it can be seen on the title page here. This copy was given to me by my mom at the beginning of high school, and I laid in my yellow room on my yellow bed with the sun streaming in from both windows, and I just devoured this book. I love Ender's Game. It will always be my favorite series. Most people are forced to read Ender's Game when they are in their high school English class. Because I made the mistake of saying that I had read it previously, I had to read a different book. I love it. I feel like Orson Scott Card really delves into the psychology of humans, of their relationships with each other. He created such a unique world. And there was so much world building and character development. You really get inside of his characters' heads. Within the same sentence, he's able to switch the point of view from being third person to first person. You're immediately put right into what the character is thinking and how they're seeing it, instead of seeing it from more of a drawn back perspective. I recommend this book to everyone. Whenever somebody asks me for a book recommendation, I always recommend that they read Ender's Game. It's always, and will always be my favorite book. The next 7 books, the rest of this video, are all part of the Ender's Game series. The last book that I finished in June was Speaker for the Dead by Orson Scott Card. For Ender, it's 30 years-ish after the Formic War that happened in the first book, but because of time dilation and traveling at light speed for the rest of humanity, it's been about 3,000 years. A new alien species is discovered, and Ender has to go to this planet where they are to speak for some humans that have died. He's a self-titled Speaker for the Dead, the title that has kind of come upon him. When people die, they send for a Speaker for the Dead so that that person can come and discover the whole truth of somebody's life and retell it to the people that are still living. Ender is very good at that. He doesn't shy away from the ugly and the bad things that happened in a person's life, but he's also equally fair to the good things that they did or that they wanted to do and their intentions. It's very different from the first Ender's Game book. Ender's Game is more about war and battles, and it's told from the perspective of children, whereas this one is from a full-fledged adult who has carried a burden on him for his whole life. When you finish Ender's Game and you go to Speaker for the Dead, it's a huge contrast, but don't let that discourage you because the rest of the series is amazing. To sum up June, I read 6 books, and 2 of them were books that I hadn't read before or finished. Whoops. In July, I only read 2 books, which both happen to be... It's so hard to choose a favorite from the series because I love all of them so much. But if I had to choose from the series of 15 books, which one was my favorite? It's so hard. I don't know. Okay, the first book I read in July was Xenocide by Orson Scott Card. This is still following the story of Ender living on this planet, Lusitania. Lusitania? I don't even know how to say it. Lusitania, where the second alien race is that has ever been discovered. It also follows a girl on a different planet who is Chinese. The whole planet is essentially a Chinese colony. The ruling class on this planet exhibits obsessive compulsive disorder symptoms. Instead of being demonized like they are in our society, it is what seems to make them holy. It's not referred to as obsessive compulsive disorder, but the symptoms and the behaviors of the people is indicative of obsessive compulsive disorder. But these people are elite. They're God-spoken, is what they are referred to as. I connect so well with this girl, Qing Yao. I don't know how to say it. It's Chinese. As I'm reading it in my head, I say Qing Yao, but that's not how you say it. Where's my pronunciation guide? Qing Zhao. Qing Zhao is her name. But anyway, I connect with her so highly because I also have obsessive compulsive disorder, and it is described in a way that I can understand how your mind goes through those repetitive processes. This copy is also signed, and it says, "To Lara, did you wash your hands?" Probably the favorite signature that I have in any book. Oh, it's so good. And there's romance, and there's science, and there's psychology, and physics, and it's everything. It's everything. The last one in July was Children of the Mind. That concludes the Ender Quartet, the original 4 that tell Ender's story. The Children of the Mind is a religious sect on the planet where Ender now lives, but also it has a double meaning. Oh, this one's also signed. I have the sticker on it from the Barnes & Noble event. I reread these books every year because I love them that much. To start out August, I continued reading the Ender's Game series. Things shift from Ender's perspective and his life story to a boy named Bean. In the first Ender's Game book, we do learn a little bit about Bean, but in the Shadow series, as it is referred to, we really get to follow Bean closely and see how he saw certain events that happened in Ender's Game and how things continued after Ender's Game for him. The first book is Ender's Shadow by Orson Scott Card, of course. This is the origin story for our main character, Bean, who grew up as an orphan on the streets of Rotterdam in the Netherlands. He has a genetic difference from the rest of humanity that makes him very small, but incredibly brilliant. He barely survives the streets and is taken to battle school in space, where he is the smallest person, but again, he is the smartest by far. His nemesis, who has tried to kill him in the past when he was still on the streets, somehow also gets sent to battle school, and Bean has to deal with that. We see the same ending of Ender's Game in Ender's Shadow, but it's told from how Bean saw it and how he was able to contribute to the battles and how he dealt with his own personal problems that we never saw in Ender's Game. The next one is Shadow of the Hegemon. This follows Bean directly after the battle of the Formic War. He returns to Earth while Ender is exiled from the planet, and then it skips that 3,000 year gap for him. So this follows Bean back to Earth, where humanity's unity during the Formic War has now collapsed and wars are starting to break out between nations. Ender's nemesis, whose name is Achille, is trying to kill Bean, but he kidnaps all of Bean's friends and tries to murder Bean and his family. It's geopolitical science fiction, where Ender's Game is a lot of physics and psychology. This is psychology and geopolitical fiction. It's amazing. The next book is Shadow Puppets. Bean has fallen in love with someone he was with in battle school. Her name is Petra, and they have some children. Those children are kidnapped as embryos, and they have to set about finding them, because now Bean, his genetic difference is killing him. He's growing too tall for his heart and spine to be able to continue to support him. Ender's brother Peter is trying to unite humanity and end all wars so that they can focus on colonizing other planets. And Shadow of the Giant is the last book that I read this summer. I finished this in the car by the light of my cell phone just the other day. This is the last book in the Shadow series, the original Shadow Quartet. Bean is an actual giant now. He towers above everybody else, but it's slowly killing him. And in this book, they set about trying to find their stolen babies, and I don't know how else to explain it, besides the fact that I love it. And I was so sad that it's over. There are still several more books in the series. Right now I'm reading Ender in Exile, which was written after the original Ender Quartet, but fits in right after the first book. And then I have at least 4 more, possibly 7 more books to finish in the series if I decide to go back and reread the prequels. And yes, that is my summer reading all wrapped up. I've read 43 books so far this year. That puts me at 71% of the way through my goal for the year. 22 of those books have been new that I've never read before. Of the total 43, 6 were audiobooks. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for sticking around. I don't know what my upload schedule is going to be like with school starting, but I hope you all have a great day, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!